This the second day, I thought I'd focus more on the element of insight meditation and the development of wisdom, as we speak of it in Buddhist tradition. And one of the things, perhaps to begin with, is to look at the way that we use the word wisdom. So in English and Western understanding, often we look at wisdom as a quality of having information or particular understanding in terms of how things work. But within Buddhist practice, the quality of panya, wisdom, isn't just a matter of understanding. It also incorporates the wordless, unformed quality of awareness itself. So when we talk about vipassana meditation, in a way, the understanding or the seeing of how things fit together is an element of that, but part of that quality of insight or wisdom, and the heart of it, is that quality of awareness itself, this awake knowing quality of the heart. So when I use the word wisdom, please understand that I'm using it in that broader meaning, so that it's involving just the quality of being awake, being aware, as well as having an understanding. Because you can be aware of not comprehending something, like if it's dark outside or it's foggy, you know that you can't see, it's dark. So you know that you don't know. So I'd say that's also an aspect of wisdom. There is awareness is functioning fully and completely, but what is being say known, or the object of that awareness, might be something that's not comprehensible. The mind can't see how the various elements fit together, but it knows in this moment there is this experience. And so that quality of awareness is wordless, is formless, is non-conceptual. Well, one of the things I mentioned yesterday, I'd like to also follow up on, is how, from my understanding and what I've received from my teachers and my own practice, with the relationship between concentration and insight, is there's a very natural and say intrinsic connection between those qualities. And again, sometimes we come across I'm doing a concentration retreat or an insight retreat, or I follow the insight path, or I follow the jhana path, and or I'm just doing 4 foundations of mindfulness. I just do satipatthana. I don't do insight. And sometimes we can put the Dhamma practice into these boxes and separate things out. But as I was mentioning yesterday, Ajahn Chah was very keen on seeing that we're talking about the same mind. These are attributes of this one mind, and so that these can't really and genuinely, truly be absolutely separate qualities, and that they interrelate with each other. And there's a particular sutta teaching that I like to refer to in this respect. Is known as liberation is a natural process. And in this, the Buddha says how it starts off by saying, those who keep the precepts, they don't have to give rise to the thought, may I be free from remorse, because it's natural if you live in a virtuous and moral, unselfish, harmless, honest way, then there's no need to wish for remorse to go away, because you're not creating the causes for remorse. And one who's free from remorse doesn't have to think, may there be a relaxation of body and mind. One who's free of remorse, there's a natural delight, and the body and the mind are relaxed. So one whose body is relaxed, mind is relaxed, there's no need for them to think, may I be contented, may there be sukha, or happiness. It's natural if the body and the mind are relaxed, and there's a sense of delight and freedom from remorse, it's natural for there to be a quality of happiness, of contentment, of great ease. And then he says, for one who is at ease, who feels contented, there's no need for them to wish, may my mind be concentrated, may there be samadhi. So it's natural for one who is content and at ease for the mind to be concentrated. So it's like if you are very happy being at home, so that we have there's Paul there in the shrine room at Sunyata, and I'm here at Amravati. I'm very content being here, so I'm not thinking about where else can I go. I know this is probably a bad example during the pandemic, and a lot of you might be very keen to go anywhere. But say, for example, we are content where we are. We're not feeding those restless urges. So if you're content where you are, the mind isn't in in the habit of following impulses, of trying to get other places and say pursuing those restless urges. So for one who is content and at ease, where there is happiness, then there's no need to think, may the mind be concentrated, because it's natural for the mind that is content to be able to concentrate. And then, particularly on this theme for today, the Buddha says, for one whose mind is concentrated, there's no need for them may knowledge and vision of the way things are arise. The Pali for that is yatha bhutang jnana dasanam. So may insight arise, because he says for one who is concentrated, it's natural for insight to arise, that knowledge and vision of the way things are, that's natural to arise. It arises on its own. So for example, if you're holding a camera, that's probably very pertinent with all these cameras operating. If you're holding a camera and then you focus it on a particular object, when the object is in focus, then you can see the picture clearly. That you don't have to think, oh, I wish I could see what's there in the picture. If the picture is in focus, the relationship of the objects within the screen, if it's a digital camera or through the viewfinder, it's all there. You can see it. So the relationship between objects is very clear, very obvious. And so that's what we essentially mean by insight, is looking at how an experience is put together, what the components are, the contingent, the elements that come together to make this experience like we have at this moment. There's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. We can look at our various screens, our computers, our iPhones, or whatever device we're looking at. Then we see the arrangement of the different faces in different boxes on the screen, the other things around the edges of the Zoom meeting box, and so on. That's there within the scope of our vision. So in that particular teaching, the Buddha, with no kind of extra sort of explanation or need to qualify anything, says, if you are concentrated, if the attention is focused in the present, there's a natural, say, pattern recognition, an aspect of our wisdom mind that is activated, that sees how things are put together. You don't have to wish for it to happen. It happens on its own. And so that is one way that where he talks about the relationship between samadhi, concentration, and insight, that he points out is just a natural function. If you're concentrated, if you're focusing attentively on the present, doesn't mean necessarily you're totally absorbed into a single object, but you're paying attention to the present. Then from that act of attending and that steadiness of attention, the wisdom faculty of the mind, mindfulness and wisdom, will see how things come together and will assess and feel out and attune to the things that are forming the patterns of this moment. And when we talk about insight meditation, that's essentially what we're doing. We're letting go of the content of an experience to look at the process of experiencing, so that there's a stepping back from absorbed into, say, what's here on our screen, and there's a stepping back to recognize, oh, this is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, arising and passing away. This is all being known within the sphere of this awareness, this mind. These are a series of impermanent events, patterns of experience coming together, taking shape and dissolving. That's what's happening right now for each one of us, right? And we put it together and we say, Sunday morning of the Sunyata retreat. That's what we label it. But in terms of insight meditation, there's a conscious deconstructing, a recognizing of the elements that are coming together to form this experience, so that there's a letting go of whether I like it or dislike it, whether it's familiar or unfamiliar, and there's a stepping back and a considering that, oh, this is all in a state of change. It can't satisfy permanently and absolutely, and it doesn't have an owner. It's not self. It's not who and what we are. So the development of insight, as I was mentioning yesterday, and is probably very familiar territory for most people gathered together for this weekend, we use these reflections on impermanence, anicca, or uncertainty, unsatisfactoriness, incompleteness, dukkha, that sense of that no individual single experience can permanently and absolutely satisfy, and then anatta, not self. This is a way of recognizing that no mental event, no pattern of experience, things that we think or feel or see or smell or taste or touch, none of it can be truly said to be who and what we are. No state of consciousness, no memory or no idea, no concept can be said to be truly who and completely what we are. And similarly, that no experience that is known can truly be said to have an owner. There's no thing that truly owns what is seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched, and thought and experienced. No owner can be found for any experience. It's known here, it's felt here in this awareness, but when we say, I see or I feel, or this is my mind or my body, we're recognizing that those terms are convenient fictions. They are sort of, as the Buddha put it, they're just common usage of words in order to communicate, but there's no absolute reality being, say, spoken of there. So it's just a convention of language to say my mind or my body or my computer or my weekend. That minus that owning is something that cannot be absolute. So when we are, say, developing the practice of insight, again, as I was mentioning yesterday, we apply these tools so that those qualities of anicca, dukkha, anatta, of uncertainty, unsatisfactoriness, not self, they're not articles of faith. They're not some sort of ideas of the Buddha to believe in, but they're a set of tools, like I was saying, like a set of spanners or socket wrenches to work on the engine of our experience. They're a set of tools to carry out a particular set of tasks. That's what they're for. And so that in the development of insight meditation, when the mind has developed a quality of steadiness, when there is that samadhi, that collectedness, then in the meditation, and we'll sort of address this during the meditation, formal meditation periods during today, there's a conscious letting go of a particular object, like the footsteps or the breath, and an expanding of the range of view to be aware of the flow of experience. So letting go of that particular sense object of, say, the breath or the footsteps, to attend to the contents of the moment in its completeness. So it's what Ajahn would call the point that includes, rather than a one-pointedness that excludes everything other than the breath. It's expanding that point to include everything, so that the heart is open, the mind is open to the whole experience of this present moment. But rather than focusing on a particular detail of this person's face or the clouds outside my window, there's a looking at the process of experiencing. So letting go of the content to know the process. And we use those tools, those reflections on impermanence and unsatisfactoriness and not self, to carry out that letting go of disentangling the attention from the content to attend to the process of experience. And so then, as we carry out that, or say actualize that practice, that letting go and disentangling, then the aim is for the heart to embody that quality of awareness, of being that very knowing, aware, awake quality that receives the flow of perceptions and experience and thought, feeling. It receives it, it knows it, it lets it go, so that there's a spaciousness and openness of the heart. And so that's the point of the insight practice, is changing the way that our experiences and perceptions and our thoughts are viewed and held and named, and to see it as just instead the flow of a perception of natural forms, organic patterns of change arising, taking shape and dissolving. And the more that the heart is able to embody that quality of awareness, simply receiving, knowing and letting go of the flow of experience, there's a great ease, a great peacefulness, and a great, say, delight in the heart, a spaciousness, a brightness of that is an innate, intrinsic quality of that awareness. So when we talk about that being awake and being aware, it can sound a little bit clinical or a bit unappealing, like as if we're sort of trying to turn ourselves into a video camera, like we're all looking at these cameras. And so the purpose of insight and the development of wisdom isn't to turn ourselves into a sort of data reception unit. We're just kind of registering the kind of the pixels and the kind of digits of our experience, and in a kind of cold clinical manner, but rather, and as we carry this out, many of you I'm sure are familiar with already, there's a liveliness, a joyfulness, a freedom, a great peacefulness and happiness that comes with that quality of unentanglement, that sense of not being identified with and burdened by or stressed by the flow of experience. So the heart is attuned to that, to the flow of experience, but it's not limited by that. And yesterday afternoon I was talking about these qualities of the Buddha, vijja and charana. Vijja is that quality of awakened awareness, and then charana is that sense of conduct or engagement, that sense, and that quality of being attuned, fully attuned and caring for the objects of the world, the sense world, fully attuned to the world, but transcendent of the world at the same time. And that paradox and that middle way, which brings those two, the quality of immanence and attunement and transcendence, that middle way that brings those two attributes together, is something I'd like to explore today. And I use the image of binocular vision, having a left eye and a right eye, and that helps to create a sort of a 3D picture in our visual cortex and in our brain. Another way of looking at it is like the warp and the weft, if I can weave my fingers, the warp and the weft of cloth. I can see all of us have got cloth that we're wearing, or cloth in our homes and around us in the curtains and whatnot. So just as you weave things together, threads together at right angles to each other, and they form a solid sheet, like a curtain or the cloth of my robes and such like. In the same way, those qualities of immanence and transcendence, or the transcendent and the worldly, the sensual, that they weave together to make this moment by moment experience that we have in our human birth, and that by the coming together, the two sets of threads weaving across each other makes cloth, which is really useful. We as human beings invented that tens of thousands of years ago, and it's really handy. Or like binocular vision, being able to see with two eyes. Many species developed that many eons ago, years ago, and it's really useful because you can orient yourself effectively in the living world. So in exactly the same way, spiritually, having those the eye both on the mundane and the supramundane, the worldly and that which is so transcends the world, the conventional truth and ultimate truth, that having both of those in the scope of our vision, that's what helps us to really embody the middle way, and is really the path of the Buddha, and what is the potential that we have, and that there's a quality of freedom that comes in that, even as we are living within the limitations of our body and the passing of time and say the forces of gravity, the need to eat and breathe, and all of the natural limitations of the living world. Even though there are those limitations, still we find there can be a great freedom within that the heart is not limited by those limitations that come with the body and the physical world and all of those aspects of our being. But when we talk about taking refuge in the Buddha, that carries an emotional tone to that. It's like when we did the chanting of the precepts and refuges yesterday, Buddhaṃ Saranam Gacchāmi. It's like I go to the Buddha for refuge. There's a heartfelt, there's a quality to that. There's an emotional tone, a warmth, and a joyfulness in that we can go to the Buddha for refuge. Well, on an internal level, embodying that quality of awakened awareness, that is what Ajahn Chah would say. That's the real going for refuge, because in that moment we are being Buddha. As he would say, there's two Buddhas, Buddha in body and Buddha in mind. And the Buddha in body is like Gautama Buddha, who lived 2,500 years ago in this era. And then the Buddha in mind is that awakened awareness. And that's the refuge for us. It's not just the memory of Gautama Buddha, the idea of the Buddha or a statue of the Buddha, but rather what makes a refuge is a safe place. It's a place of security, a place of reliable abiding, and that is a psychological quality. It's a quality of our own lives, our own hearts, our own minds. And so when we embody that quality of awareness, then we are genuinely taking refuge in Buddha. We are being Buddha in that moment, maybe with a small b rather than a big B. Not trying to walk around saying, I'm the Buddha, with a sort of massive ego trip, but rather being awake, being aware. That's what is meant by the term Buddha. Literally, that's what the word means. It means awake. If there's any Russian speakers here gathered together, my understanding is the word for an alarm clock in Russian is something like Buddha. So it's that which wakes you up. I don't know if we have any Russian speakers here, but that's how I heard. That's it sort of came into the Russian language through Sanskrit, and it's the word for what wakes you up in the morning. So there's a very interesting dialogue in the suttas where the Buddha was sitting meditating in the forest, and a Brahmin was wandering along the road called Dona, and he saw that in the dust of the road, he saw the footprints of the Buddha, and he saw that there were these the lines on the soles of the Buddha's feet formed into really unusual, it's interesting and symmetrical patterns like wheel shapes and such like. So the Brahmin saw these footprints and thought, well, what kind of a being walked here? These look like human footprints, but these lines are really strange. They're kind of extraordinary. So he followed the footprints off the road and into the forest, and there he found the Buddha sitting under a tree meditating. And he was very struck, impressed by the powerful presence of this yogi. He didn't recognize who it was at all, didn't know of the Buddha. And so there's this radiant, peaceful being sitting under a tree. And so the Brahmin kind of came up close by and knelt down, and the Buddha opened his eyes, and the Brahmin said, "Excuse me, are you a deva? Are you an angel?" And then the Buddha replied, "No, I'm not an angel." He said, "Well, are you a Brahma god? You are a high deity." He said, "No, I'm not a Brahma god." Are you a yaka, a celestial demon?" He said, "No, I'm not a yaka." And he says, "Are you a human being?" He says, "No, I'm not a human being." Which is really interesting, because the Buddha cannot lie. He's incapable, as an arahant, he's incapable of telling a falsehood. Like physically, the tongue cannot form a lie or a falsehood. But yet when he said, "Are you a human being?" he literally said, "That whereby you could know me as a human being, that has been abandoned." The translated into English. And so then he said, "Well, excuse me, but what are you?" And then the Buddha says, you can know me as one who is awake, buddhosmi, buddho asmi. So he defines his own nature as awakenedness, buddho, and that's one of the reasons why we use the word Buddha to refer to him. That's a part of the origin of that word, so that he was born from human parents and had a mother and a father and a biological birth, but that the change of lineage, as it's called, the Gotrabu, when he realized enlightenment, then there was a letting go of identification with the body, with the personality. And so when he's asked, are you a human being? He could quite cheerfully say, no, that whereby you could define me in terms of the five khandhas of the body and feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, and so on. That's all been let go of. That's been abandoned. But you can know me as one who is awake, buddhosmi. So to me, it's a very short teaching, a very small sutta, but it's very, very significant, because it's, while the Buddha is sitting there, a human body, and having a conversation with another person, he's speaking from that place of awakenedness, of freedom, and of peacefulness. And that when we're developing insight meditation, what is the core of that is learning to embody that same awakened, aware quality. Another word that the Buddha used to refer to himself was the Tathagata, which again is probably familiar to many of you. Tathagata, T-A-T-H, long A, G-A-T-A, Tathagata. And the word tat or tata means thus or such. And gata means to go, like Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. That Gacchami comes from the same verb as gata. So Tathagata, it can mean one who has gone to suchness, Tathagata. But also it could mean tat agata, and the A at the beginning of agata means to come. So again, this reflects that both the transcendent and the immanent quality of that principle. Not to get too philosophical about this, but I do feel, or too sort of grammatical, but I feel this is a very, very significant. And the Buddha seems to have coined this word Tathagata himself. That it doesn't seem to have appeared in Sanskrit or Pali languages before that. So it seems like the Buddha invented this word to refer to this his own nature, and it can mean thus gone or thus come, gone to suchness or come to suchness, tat agata or tata gata. And of course, Buddhist scholars and pundits over the centuries have debated vigorously what he really meant. Did he mean gone, totally transcendent, or totally here? And my feeling is that the Buddha was a great lover of double meanings and puns. There's a lot of punning in the Pali Canon, a lot of double meanings. And I feel he deliberately coined the word to have that double meaning of being referring to that mind that is totally attuned to the way things are and completely transcendent of the way things are, completely unattached and unidentified, but yet attuned at the same time. So completely here, completely gone, so, totally immanent, totally transcendent, simultaneously. And again, I feel this is the warp and the weft that is represented by the Buddha quality. And in developing insight meditation, it's the purpose of that is to tap into that same Buddha quality of our own hearts, our own minds, and to be living from that place, to be embodying that. So it's not a spacing out, like when we think about transcendence or letting go. It can seem like there was sort of disconnecting from the material world, of forgetting about the people around us, or kind of spacing out. It's more like a spacing in, if you can use such a term, where you are, there's a disentangling, a non-identification with the world of things, this body, this personality, and not being attached or identified with that, but also it's a perfect attunement to the world of things, to this body, this mind, this personality at the same time. And those two qualities don't conflict with each other, but rather, as we have in the Buddha, they are perfectly integrated. So I feel to understand, this is what we're aiming to do with insight meditation and the development of wisdom in our Buddhist practice. That's what we're really aiming for. Just another sutta that I really like to quote and refers to this same area is one of the rare places where the Buddha talks about his own nature, and it's in a discussion he's been having with another wanderer called Vacchagotta. And Vacchagotta has been trying to ask the Buddha what happens to an enlightened being at the end of their life, and when an enlightened being passes away, where do they go? Do they reappear in another realm, or do they not reappear? Do they disappear altogether? Do they both reappear and not reappear? Do they neither reappear nor not reappear? And to all of those different possibilities, the Buddha says that doesn't apply, that doesn't apply, that doesn't apply. So Vacchagotta at the end of that conversation is really confused. He says, I'm in doubt, because one of those has got to be happening. Either such a one disappears altogether, or they reappear in some kind of transcendent realm. Something's got to be going on. Yeah. And then the Buddha said, well, Vaccha, the way you ask the question is presuming a reality that doesn't exist. And he gives this wonderful example. So this sutta is called the Vacchagotta and fire, because of the analogy that the Buddha gives. And he says, so Vaccha, say we had a little fire burning here made of grass and sticks, and then we let the fire go out. And I asked you the question, where did the fire go, Vaccha? North, south, east, or west? What would you say? And he'd say, well, the question doesn't apply because it didn't go north, south, east, or west. It just went out. And the Buddha said, exactly. You're right. The way you put the question presumes a reality that doesn't exist. You can't, where doesn't apply, they doesn't apply, going doesn't apply. Like all of your presumptions about individuality, time, and location, they're all presumptions. They don't apply. And so then after that, it comes the passage that I like to reflect on and talk about very regularly. So then the Buddha then tries to convey to Vacchagotta the nature of his own experience and what the being of the Buddha is embodying. So he says that material form, that rupa, whereby someone trying to describe the Tathagata would describe him, that's been cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, deprived of the conditions for existence, and rendered incapable of arising in the future. That feeling, those Vedana, those sensations, those perceptions, those mental formations, those thoughts, ideas, emotions, that consciousness, the sense consciousness whereby one trying to define or describe the Tathagata would describe him, that's similarly been cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, and so on. And so for all of the five khandhas, all these aspects of body and mind that we think of as who and what we are, this body, this personality, that they've been completely let go of. Yeah, the bridge is down. Cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, deprived of the conditions of existence. So there's a total letting go of and transcendence of what we call the five khandhas, or this five groups of body and mind, five aspects of body and mind. Then he goes on to say the Tathagata, that awakened aware quality, is liberated from being reckoned in terms of form, the body, feeling, Vedana, sensations, sanya, perception, sankhara, mental formations, vijnana, consciousness. And then he goes on to say that Tathagata has been liberated from being reckoned in terms of rupa, Vedana, sanya, sankhara, vijnana. He is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So that is a very evocative image. So he's saying he is, there is something there, there's some quality that is present. There is this suchness, this tata, that is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So just as when you stand on the seashore, and for most of us, when we stand on the cliff or on the seashore, and we look out over the waves, and the sea stretches off to the horizon, there's a sense of wonderment, and the presence of the sea is powerful, but we can't, and it's vast, powerful, and limitless. So it rolls over the horizon and disappears from view. You can't see it going on forever. It's only a certain amount that can be perceived, and you can't see what's going on below the surface. So the Buddha deliberately uses that image of the sea, and I feel a quality of wonderment. That he says the Tathagata is profound, immeasurable, unfathomable, like the great ocean. So there is an isness, a suchness, but you can't define what that really is in terms of time, identity, location, all the usual ways we say, you know, I am Ajahn Amaro, Elaine is the manager, Paul is in the shrine room with Ivan, I think it was. Is that right? Yeah. So we got names, we got places. They're in the shrine room at Sunyata. Elaine's in her home in the village nearby. I'm an Amaravati, that's where I am. All those usual handles of names, places, that they don't apply. Just as Tathagata saying, where does an enlightened being go? The Buddha, where doesn't apply. You know, they don't apply. Going doesn't apply. So that is mind-boggling, because our usual way of framing our experience is today is Sunday, April the 25th. Yeah, my name is Malaki or Paduma or Nia or Declan. Just reading the names off the screen. Jude, Gregorsh. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Arya, you know, that these are our names. All those don't apply. They're convenient fictions that we use to refer to particular patterns of experience. So when we're, say, developing insight and the development of the use of insight meditation, it's to do with letting go of those familiar handles of what we think we are, letting go of the body, the personality, all those usual frames of reference, to drop them, and then to not be filling that up with, well, the real me therefore is, you know, I'm awareness, that's what I am, or I am suchness. That's the real me. That's just a set of words representing a concept. Even to say, you know, I am the Dhamma, or I am awareness. That's just a sentence. You know, I am awareness. That's not awareness. That's a sentence. That's a collection of words. And that's so the purpose of insight practice is not just creating another identity or another set of ideas or words to describe this nature of being and experiencing, this locus of knowing, but rather to let those familiar frameworks go and to embody that quality of attuned awareness. So even though that might sound like a bit scary, and sort of letting go of all those, but you know, so letting go of being a woman, being a man, having a nationality, an age, a name, a story. You know, to our ego, that's terrifying and unsettling. But it should be understood that that letting go is rather like being let out of prison, or getting to the end of a desert, or the end of a pandemic. It's like, thank goodness, you know, that limitation is gone. So it's rather than anything being lost, it's not like when you're let out of jail, you're nothing is being lost, but rather a freedom is being gained. The familiarity of your prison cell might have been familiar and known, but the opening of the jail cell and being allowed out into the open world there's a freedom in that. So that I would, and I think one of the aspects of the practice and the teaching, whereby we have the precepts and the quality of faith and the examples of the great enlightened elders of our tradition, that there's a security. We're not just, as Robert Thurman, Professor Thurman put it, he said, the Buddha just doesn't just leave you out in the middle of the traffic. You know, you have these supports of the three refuges, and the precepts. They are a guide for creating, on the conventional level, a structure for our lives and for living in the world, and for creating, you know, skillful forms and guiding the wholesome and benevolent choices that we make. So that the process of developing insight, it requires a certain amount of courage, a bravery of letting go of the familiar. And there's, I think for most of us to be familiar with the better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. So, and that's a phrase with a lot of wisdom in it, in some respects, because we do hang on to the devil that we know. And many years ago, speaking in prison cells, a few weeks after I arrived in the monastery in Thailand, I was very enthusiastic about Buddhism and meditation. I thought, this is great, this is fantastic. This is just what I was looking for. How wonderful that I discovered this. And I had an extremely vivid dream. I don't talk about dreams very often, but this particular instance, it was very informative. It was an extremely vivid dream. And in this dream, for some reason, I was a Native American and with a tribe of other Native Americans. And we had just conquered this fort, this sort of a wooden fort. And we just won the fight. The gates were open, and all of the American soldiers had vanished, run away. So the gates are open of this wooden fortress, and I'm running inside, and a few of our friends, or the members of whatever tribe it was I was part of, why my mind formed that scenario, I can't possibly say, but it did. So I was running through this sort of corridor in this fortress where the prison cells were. And then I was looking in the doors, and then I found this particular cell with this old school friend of mine, and an old kind of drinking buddy and fellow party goer and sort of a teenage rowdy. We were very, very close growing up together. And I kind of threw the door open and I said, yeah, you're free. We won the fight. It's all over. You can go. And then rather than this friend of mine say, oh, hooray, that's great. He kind of was sitting in the corner of the cell and had his face to the wall and sort of looked over his shoulder. And I said, yeah, you're free. You can go. And he said, and he kind of looked over his shoulder a second time and said, well, I'm kind of busy at the moment. I said, busy? What do you mean? We've captured the fort. You're free. And then I walked up close and looked over his shoulder, and he was knitting. I don't know why in this dream. I never saw him doing anything remotely like knitting in his life. He was a kind of sport, a very athletic, sporty kind of a guy. But in this dream, he was sitting there knitting. He said, oh, I'm kind of busy at the moment. And so then there was this sort of I felt startled and surprised. Well, the door's open, and I just thought, if he wants to stay there and carry on with his knitting, well, okay, he doesn't want to leave his prison cell. So I turned around, left the door, and left him to it. So it was one of those dreams where you woke up and you thought, well, that was a message. That was meaningful, and it was helpful to me in a certain way. Like, don't assume that everyone that you grew up with, or anyone in your family, or your old mates, are going to be seeing things the same way that you do, that you see this as a great opportunity and a freedom, that this sort of spiritual perspective is something that's really wonderful and enriching. For other people, it's really intimidating. And I can see over the years, I've been in the Sangha now for more than 40 years and been around a lot of teachings and retreats and giving advice to people. And it's very, very common that when these kind of insights arise, and there is those moments of recognizing, oh, I'm not the body, I'm not the personality. This life doesn't really have an owner. It's not me or mine. And then there's a kind of shock to the system. And so we find ourselves getting really busy, re-identifying, getting committed to something that's really got our name on, or going into debt, or buying a new house or something, going traveling, or starting a new project, something that's really got our name writ large and solidly on it, to get away from that insight. But I would one of the things I would encourage is to expect that the ego to be the habits of self-view to be intimidated. That's a natural part of it. It's not something that's unexpected. But if we recognize that sense of intimidation of, whoa, I don't like this, oh, this is scary, like, yes, good. Not that being scared is good, but like, yes, of course, that's the reaction of the habits of self-view. That's not to be pushed away, it's not to be believed in, but to recognize, oh yeah, that those familiar reference points, this is the devil I know. Okay, but that devil can be let go of. That we don't have to be defined by that. We don't have to stay in that cell. The door is open, and that if we recognize that kind of shock to the system, or that quality of scariness that can come with insight, then we can process that. We can include that as part of the picture, recognizing, well, that's the habit of self-view. But if like you think of that as like a curtain that you pass through, then on the other side of that there's a joyfulness, because this kind of insight, the development of wisdom, it's intimidating to the ego, but it's really liberating to the heart. So again, it's a kind of bittersweet mixture. And I would say, when people ask you, how would you describe the experience of Buddha Dhamma? I'll say bittersweet. It's bitter to the ego and to the habits of self-view, but there's a great sweetness when we pass through those curtains of hesitancy and feeling intimidated or challenged. If there's a courage to pass through that, then there's a sense of great spaciousness and relief in the heart. There's a joyfulness of, whew. And so that mixture of bitterness and sweetness is to be expected. And so that I would encourage that when there's moments of intimidation, this is a bit scary, I'm not sure if I can let go of that, or like to quote the famous words of St. Augustine, "O Lord, grant me purity, but not yet." I'm sure it's very elegant in Latin as well, but that's the same kind of, I'm ready for liberation next week, or but I can't quite let go of this right now. So to recognize that as part of the dynamic, and to work with that, to be ready to receive that, and then passing through that, then on the other side there's a great freedom. I often quote a story I heard about someone who was doing the Oxford and Cambridge entrance exams, and those of you who might have done these kind of exams in the past, they have two sets of papers. One is the paper that's the subject that you're applying for, like English literature or physics or psychology or whatever, and the other one is called the general paper. And in the general paper, the questions can be absolutely anything. And you have 3 hours, and you have to write 2 essays for the general paper. And this one particular candidate, on the general paper, one of the questions was, what is bravery? And she just wrote the words, "This is." And she got 10 out of 10, which is completely unheard of. That was a 2-word answer for an hour and a half essay. This is. And they thought, okay, we want her. And she got accepted. She got a place in Cambridge on the strength of that. So that's what I heard. So these are a few themes to begin the day with, and we have a period of walking meditation now. And yesterday I gave a little bit of instruction, particularly with walking focused around the quality of concentration, or say returning the attention to the feeling of the feet as they meet the ground as we walk along. So today I'd like to sort of shift the focus a little bit, and to use the same format of walking. So decide on where you want to walk, and then to walk for a half-hour period, but to shift the focus, whereby to be attending to the body walking, but to see if you can let go of that, say the identification with the movement, and just knowing the perceptions of the body moving, so that in a way, staying with that feeling, the quality of awareness, so that there's just as I can move my hand, I'm aware of the hand moving, but that which knows the hand isn't moving, it's absolutely here. So to see if we can walk, just knowing the action of walking as a set of perceptions arising and passing away in the mind, in this awareness, which is always absolutely here. Does that make sense? So there's, and Ajahn Chah would speak about this as walking one step at a time. You're still walking in a natural way, but you're absolutely with the present moment. So there's a stillness, even as the flow of perceptions is coming and going and changing, that the quality of knowing is absolutely still, absolutely ever present. So there's the flow of perceptions of the body moving. Even as the body walks up and down, you're not going anywhere. You're always absolutely here. Does that make sense? So please experiment with that for the next half hour or so. Let's see. I think we were going to walk for a little bit longer. So it's about, so we'll gather back together at 10:30 UK time, Irish time. So it's now 9:53 by my clock. So please get yourselves organized and with your walking place, and then walk for about 35 minutes, and then we'll gather back together for the sitting meditation at 10:30 UK time.